Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Infinity Fast Forward webinar series. We're very glad to have you join us this morning. My name's Steve Kessler, and I'll be the host for the program today. I don't know if y'all are like me, but I can hardly believe that Christmas Eve, I believe, is 1 week from today. So we are approaching Christmas Day very rapidly, and I think our topic for today is very timely. We're going to talk about navigating holiday roads and mental loads. And I think it's a perfect topic because this time of the year can be very anxiety producing and give us some uh, feelings that are a little bit tough to deal with from time to time. So we're very excited to have Horatio join us on this program this morning. Real quickly, a couple of housekeeping items. Those of you that have logged in are muted, so we can't hear you. But if you need to communicate with us or ask a question, feel free to type it in the chat box there. There's actually even a Q&A box, and you can put your question in there. As a matter of fact, as I get ready to introduce the rest of our guests, why don't you just jump in the chat, let us know who you are, who you're with, and where you're from, so we kind of have an idea who's out there. And while y'all are doing that, let me introduce my co-host, Mark Ray. Most of you uh, are familiar with Mark. He's been part of our webinars for quite a long period of time. Mark's a veteran trucking executive for what, 34, 35 years now. He's a certified director of safety and involved in a lot of safety advisory boards and councils around the country. Uh, but most importantly, I want everybody to welcome Horatio Neely. He's our guest today. Horatio is the vice president and co-owner of Neely Counseling, but more importantly, heads up Neely Employee Assistance Program. You see the little logo there. So very experienced person, is a good friend of ours. He's a content producer for us, has a lot of experience in this field, and is very familiar with transportation and trucking. So without any further delay, I'm going to introduce you all to Horatio Neely. Horatio, you want to take it away?
All right. Well, thank you, Steve, and thanks for having me today. Good to see you, Mark. So today we're going to talk about really navigating the roads during the holidays, and then understanding the impact mentally that your drivers or your admin team may have during the holiday season. Before I get started, in the chat, I want to get some feedback. Where are you located? I know Steve put out a request for your name, but I want to get a good feel where you're located. I'm here currently. I'm in Houston, Texas. I got out this morning for a 5K run, and it was hot and humid, so didn't have any bad weather. But I think last week the cold front pushed down, and it was below 30 in Texas, right? So there's a lot to do when you talk about moving through navigating the holiday season as well, some of the
Yeah,
weather.
I'm seeing Chicago, and here's Texarkana, Fort
Uh,
Recovery, Ohio. We got Charlotte, North Carolina, Toronto, Ontario, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Nova
Uh,
Scotia.
Yeah, we've got them from all over. So there's Atlanta, New Orleans,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Indianapolis. So we got folks from all over
O-
the U.S. here that have joined us this morning.
Okay. I'm loving it, Stockton territory. So,
Yeah.
so especially if you're anywhere close to Canada in that Midwest, northern part, Northeast, this time of the year, the weather can be very tough. So when you talk about getting out and working with drivers, it's a different animal as well. So today, what we're going to do, we're going to look at really making a connection between the holiday travel season and stress. Part of what happens is that what we don't look at is the level of anxiety that goes up when we talk about managing those time constraints and unexpected delays. Especially this time of the year, I'm working with a company now, so as a consultant, and this week we're looking at what areas are open. So when we're making deliveries, can they actually get into a location? Because from a driver perspective, they take this hot load that that's urgent. They get to the site and they're not taking delivery, so they got to go back to the location, or there's some delays. So managing those time constraints, those unexpected delays, drives a lot of anxiety for our driver group. When we talk about the feeling of being lonely and some of the unmet expectations, you may have someone this time of year going through a divorce, or going through a separation, or they just had a big breakup. That's where we get into that depression piece. So that's where that stress, when you talk about the mental focus from that perspective, working with anxiety or dealing with anxiety and depression, those are some variables that can drive both of that. We talked about really the weather, but when we talk about traffic, if you're in a major metro area, especially when you talk about, say, the top 20, someone said Atlanta, Texas, we have, four: Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston. Those routes during the holidays, they are atrocious. It's hard to navigate I-10 and 45 throughout the holidays because you have so many people on the roads. But if you're in a local community, schools are out, you love moving around because you don't have to deal with the bus stops and the bus stopping and the
Mhm.
kids and the teachers on the road. So sometimes traffic and congestions can definitely lead to a lot of additional stress. The weather, no doubt, though, when you talk about snow and rain and some of the certain changes in the weather patterns, that can be very impactful because a lot of drivers do not like to get out in the snow, especially if you're a driver accustomed to navigating through the southern part of Texas. You, when you talk about snow and putting on snow cleats and things of that nature, trips and falls or getting into the truck, it's kind of difficult in the snow because you're not used to it. If you're in Wisconsin or you're in Nova Scotia, you're up in that area in Canada, you're accustomed to it. So you're putting snow chains and things of that nature, and how you navigate in the snow it just comes second nature. When we talk about the schedules, just the tight schedules, like I talked about earlier, that level of stress leads to high levels of cortisol. And when we talk about short-term impact of cortisol levels, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. So we're looking at increase in blood pressure and heart rate that happens because they may have a panic attack. We talk about blood sugar imbalance. When you talk about some of your drivers who may be diabetic, when we look at suppressing your immune system, they may be more susceptible to colds and things of that nature. And I think most of all is high levels of cortisol disrupts your sleeping patterns. So there's a point to where, from a driver perspective, you're not getting a full 6 to 8 hours of rest because you're stressed out. So your sleeping pattern, you may be accustomed to going down at 10 o'clock. Now you're staying up until midnight. So y- taking all these things in consideration, I think during the holidays, it hits a little harder because managing relationships, managing those expectations during that period is it's pretty tough. I know firsthand. I had a driver who didn't get vacation time in on time. He was single father. He was trying to get his kid, but since he didn't have the vacation time, he had to work. And eventually I worked it out to where he got 2 days instead of a full week. But those 3 days that he was away from his kid, the most stressful period because hadn't had his kid for like 2 months.
Yeah.
But when you talk about being a father and being out on the road, that level of stress, trying to meet those commitments, trying to be present for your family members, it can be additional. It can be tough. So understanding the connection, the mind body impact, and how stress can impact you on the road. So there's a couple of things. I've been around this business for a while, and I can tell when a driver is stressed out. One is the physical component. When I see them more lethargic, not upbeat, uh, always headed to get aspirin or something of that nature. coming into the dispatch office, very erratic. Normally they're upbeat, they're good, happy-go-lucky, but now, they give you 2 words and they're out the door.
Mm.
So doing a check-in with your drivers, kind of looking at, hey, what exactly is driving some of the abnormal behavior that you're not accustomed to seeing? The emotional piece, if you're on this call and you're a safety director or you're a supervisor, uh, you've probably experienced having drivers break down and in tears or emotionally be at a point to where either they came out of a bad relationship or the holidays may trigger that they've lost a significant other, they lost a parent or a relative during the holidays. So that can be impactful. And I think most of the cognitive piece, um, lack of focus, um, where they're not concentrating. I was in the car hauling business, and we would have drivers have a load bar pop up and hit them in the face while they're loading because they're not
Oh,
focusing on while they're loading the cars and tying the car down on the truck, right? Um, in the transportation industry, you have to have a high level of focus. I think this is probably one of the industries that we're in to where if someone's showing up and they're not focused and they're not ready for the game that day, I say, hey, why don't you take a PTO or just take a day off? Because you don't want today to be the day that you have a major incident because you're not engaged in what you're supposed to do. But I
these
think,
can
oh,
be
go ahead.
serious safety issues here with, cognitive type issues. Concentration and such could create a very unsafe circumstance for a driver.
And not only for driver, of course, is for the roadway and for their coworkers. So
Yeah,
definitely from a safety perspective, you want to be engaged and understand that what type of resources you can provide for your drivers, especially during the holiday period as well.
interesting.
So wellness on the road. So we'll give you some tips as far as, and this is nothing new, but I think more so, especially during the holiday season, um, planning ahead, already mapping out the route, already accounting for contacting that location, especially if it's a new location. Hey, are you open to take deliveries? Are identifying if there's any construction. There's different apps now where you can identify construction and things out there. Of course, with your iPhone. Not familiar with the Android platform, but the iPhone, when you put in a route, it'll tell you red, and you can see, it's pretty intriguing. You can see the traffic pattern. So plan ahead so you can set some realistic goals if you're going to make it that day, if you're going to make it the next day. Because the more you plan, I say often, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan.
Yeah.
So if you're not a planner, especially in this business, you're just at the mercy of whatever may happen to you. And because you're not planning correctly, that definitely contributes to your level of stress and high levels um, of anxiety as well.
Mm.
When we talk about self-care, there was a study, and I can send it to you if you're interested, where they did a pilot on 16 different truck stops, and they had different stats, but one of the stats that jumped out at me was 50% of them lack fresh fruit and 37% lack fresh veggies.
Mm.
I think that's positive because if you did that study probably 20, 30 years ago, those numbers would probably be under
Five.
10%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, five, Mark, you laughing. Yeah, right. And so when you talk about some of the truck stops out there, like Pilots, the Flying J's, the TAs, the Petros, they've made a lot of investments in health and wellness. So I think no doubt some of those locations offer fresh fruit and veggies and other nutritional things that drivers can have. Um, because in our industry, it goes without saying, a lot of our drivers, because it's a sedentary environment, there's a lot of obesity. And so obesity leads to high blood pressure, drivers being diabetic, uh, getting a med card. I think the shortest, well, they have 1 month. I know they do them for 1 year. They don't give them the longest period, but being able to get your med card renewed because of your blood pressure and not managing your meds correctly. And of course, one of the things you want to have is an emergency toolkit. So having contact numbers, having everything accessible in your rig, having things accessible at the office for drivers too. When I worked at a remote location outside of Memphis, we had to make sure that we had the portable chargers for to charge batteries, and they got all these different portable features that are battery operated that drivers can either have in their truck or you can have in the office that's accessible to them. And then also access to different types of apps. When we talk about like the Calm app, meditation apps, it helps as well. One of the key things that I do now is sleep with I use an app to sleep because I sleep with wave sounds. And so a lot of people, it's that evolution that you realize, hey, what works for you? What helps you get to a calm space? We'll talk more about that as well. So managing your anxiety, there's a couple of things. And we do a lot of different things in our office and our practice, Neely Counseling Center, where we have therapists and we have clients and customers that come in. We teach things like box breathing, 4, 5, 7. We have different type of breathing techniques so they can come back. We'll talk about grounding level later on. Um, there's different type of mindfulness techniques they can practice during delays, so they can get into a space when they feel like, okay, I had dispatch call this office. I reached out to someone to see if they were taking this delivery. I get here and the door is closed and no one's available. So you may have a driver who is always, they call him the hothead, right? He's known for speaking his mind, he's known for going off on people. But over a period of time, and you've seen that, Mark, that doesn't work. It doesn't, especially today, right? So how do you give that driver some tools to relax and calm down? So when you get hit with a delay, go back out to the truck, practice a breathing technique, get grounded. We'll talk more about grounding later on, but put yourself into a different space so you can stay calm and carry on. I think most of all, visualizing. We do a sports clinic with young athletes, and we talk about visualization. And I play basketball and football as well. Being able to see the ball going in, being able to see yourself on the road, making a safe delivery, being able to see yourself smiling and shaking the hand of someone that's happy to get that holiday load because they've been waiting on it all week. Um, Picturing yourself in a safe space, uh, having that vision helps tremendously, and it helps you control your thoughts. A lot of drivers, and I think the environment is changing because as you look at the average age of drivers now, I think I got to go back. Maybe Mark or Steve, you have some of this data, but I think the average trucker out there now is about between 48 and 55 in that group, and that's
That
mostly
sounds about
your
right.
that's your late 60s and your 70s babies. So they're a little bit more open to some of um, the psychology and open to counseling, open to health and wellness. So I think teaching drivers how to mentally go to a different space so they can calm down. That's one of the biggest benefits, especially if you have a training organization that can help reinforce that as well. So depression. This is unfortunate. This is one of those times of the year where sometimes people think holiday music is the best, but unfortunately, some people cannot stand Christmas music. Whether it reminds them of a relationship, reminds
Right.
them of a loved one. Um, so this is where we talk about just really staying grounded during the holidays. There's a couple things that can help you get there. One is stay connected. Share your travel itinerary with your loved ones, especially if you got your kids. I think this is the last week for kids to be out of school. So next week, if you have drivers out there on the road, they can share an app with their kid, so the kid can see where dad is going. They're at home. They can stay engaged. I wouldn't recommend them calling them all the way on the road, but at least they can follow them via an app so they can stay connected, especially if they're feeling like they should be home during the holidays while the kids are out, but they can't get off because they got to keep the lights on, right? And then scheduling those moments of joy, especially on those small trips. Just being in a position where you're creating memories with your loved ones or with someone that's in your family. And then I think most of all, for a lot of people, you'd be surprised from a driver perspective, even admin. Stay away from the apps, especially when you're comparing your life or your lifestyle to someone that
Mhm.
you're following on social media or someone that you know on social media. I tease often that my main social media apps are really LinkedIn and X. I do have IG, but I'll be honest, I don't want to see a ex or see someone that I don't like living their best life. I don't know. Sometimes I feel some way, right? Like you see this person, you know they're not living right, but they're giving this image. So now you're caught up in this image. I think a lot of times the Facebook and the Instagrams, they create this facade that people buy into, and because you may have someone that has low emotional intelligence, a low cognitive functioning, where they really take this to heart and it generates this level of depression. And you may see this person, hey, what's wrong with you? And they may just have seen a clip about someone they care about, seen a clip about an ex, and all this comes from social media.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest one is TikTok. I think there's going to be a ban on TikTok coming up in January. That's going to be interesting if that's going to take place. But I think more and more, you'd be surprised outside of our youth, our driver groups, a lot of people are addicted to social media
Mm.
and it drives their emotion. It drives how they feel and how they engage with people because of them going onto a social media platform. Steve, you were about to say something.
No, I was about to, yeah. Social media, would it be of benefit if the companies that are on this social media put positive messages out? If they're going to be on the social media anyway, maybe they get a little bit more positive stuff that they can look at. I don't know if that made sense or not, but if they're going to use social media, the companies should prop them up a little bit with whatever they put out there.
I love it. So it's two different animals. In one of my previous companies that I work with, they had a social media Facebook account, and drivers love following the Facebook account. They would post pictures.
Mm.
They may have contests, step contests at work. They had a potluck. Who had the best potluck? Who had the best dish? And then all of a sudden, someone got fired or someone left the company. So now that social media platform turned into
Yeah.
this area to
Negative.
so
Yeah.
it can go both ways. One thing that I've seen very successful, I work with a company that developed an app to where everyone within the company, the app shared information about everything happening in the company. And they can lock the app down to where you could put comments, but you couldn't go out of control, get out of control. But I love that thought. I think more and more companies need to look at creating in-house apps to where they can control the narrative and control the message,
Yeah.
especially during the holiday season, for their driver and their employees to engage.
Good.
Oh, when we talk about weather conditions, especially for, I had people mentioning they were in the Midwest. We had some people in Canada. Um, uh, this second nature because the terrain is completely different. But as we move into the winter months, as we get into January, there's a couple things. One, make sure that you're checking the weather. There's nothing worse than that drives stress and anxiety is being out and all of a sudden you get hit into a storm that you're not prepared for, or you got a load that you're working with and it's open and you don't have it strapped down right. You want to make sure you check the weather reports before you head out. Of course, you want to make sure you're practicing good following distances. I'm sure that you have some modules and you're training if they want to know about that as well. But you'd be surprised how sometimes, especially in these metro areas, that even when I'm driving, I'm seeing truckers not providing good following distance. If you got a four-wheeler that's trying to cut over and get in front of you, you can see they're being erratic. Go ahead and pull back. Give them the space. Let them get in there so they can keep going. More than likely, if you're in Dallas or Houston, probably within the next mile or two, you'll see that exact same four-wheeler sitting right there in front of you. They're not going to go far. It's a race to go nowhere.
Yeah.
And then, of course, keep emergency kit. Get a nice emergency kit with you, whether it be a flashlight, first aid, blankets, anything that you know that's essential that you need when you're out on the road. So, how do you balance these schedules and priorities? So, one of the key things is there's no perfect holiday. Every holiday is different. Um, I will tell you that more and more now, especially with the iPhones and the Android phones, you're in a position where you can make memories. If you're like me, often I get a memory that pops up, and my latest memory was my kid's 2023 memory. I don't know how it suggests these memories on the iPhone, but it makes memories, right? And but what you realize over a period of time that, hey, during that memory, that was something that someone was upset, but you got through it. So there's no perfect holiday. So embrace the flexibility and expect minor delays. Expect something not to go right throughout the process. And then, be realistic. Set realistic expectations with your family and your coworkers, especially if you're out there working during the holidays. Did I ask this question in chat? In the chat, let me know. Are you going to run trucks on Christmas Eve and Christmas, or New Year's Eve or New Year's Day? Let me know in the chat. Are you running trucks during the holidays? How many of you guys are running trucks during the holidays? Mark, in your previous life, did you guys run a lot during the holidays? Okay, cool.
Yes, we did. Yes. The other thing that I'd just like to comment on is all these things are certainly relevant to our professional commercial truck drivers, but the people we're sharing the road with, I think the distractions, the impairment, the for everybody else on the road needs to be something taken into consideration.
Mm, yeah, big time. Yeah, so I got that. Yeah, shut down New Year, so you have a limited window. Currently, don't think you're running. Yeah, yeah. So it varies, but when you're out there running during the holidays, it's a different animal, especially when you talk
It
about the
is.
stress that people are dealing with.
Mm.
Um, because a lot of time drivers, sometimes they don't want to be out there. And then so I had a thought this morning. I had a driver who wanted some vacation time, but he was at the house and he realized that he needed a break away from the family. He'd been there for like 3 or 4 days. So he called the dispatch office. Hey, you guys have any work? Can I come in and get a load? He was willing to just come in and work for the day so he could get away from the family for a little while, right?
Yep. Yep.
So it varies, but I think set it realistic expectations. And then I think most of all, prioritizing your rest so you don't overcommit. a lot of times during the holidays, we get into this mode of getting out to, hey, I got to go shopping today. Hey, I got to get the lights up. There's so many different to-dos that you have during the holidays. Hey, we need to make a trip and go see this person. So you go to overcommitting, and then at that point, you don't get your rest. So you've been running, 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 and this period of time when you should be able to just shut down and get refreshed, you're still on the rope. So make sure you're taking time to relax so you're not on the rope as you get through the holidays. So let me give you some tools. We talked about a couple, but one, there's a Calm app that you can engage in as well. There's Woz, there's WeatherBug, there's different type of apps that you can use for stress-free travel. And I think the app world, it goes on and on. But at the end of the day, there's some free resources out there that you can plug into. Um, we have a podcast. We call it Drop Your BS, Drop Your Backstory. There's so many different podcasts out there that, depending on what you're into, if you're into fishing, if you're into traveling, if you're into artifacts, I love the podcast platform these days because it's a good escape. And I think often that's what people are looking for. They're looking for an escape for their current reality, their current stress, what they're currently dealing with. And then also, there's some different type of um, items, portable items you can take with you, whether it be essential oils or stress balls or neck pillows. You can have. I used to have a driver who was into a lot. He had all the rocks and the um, the beads in his truck. And even in the car, I keep I keep a neck pillow in my car as well. But there's different portable items that you can use that can kind of help take your mind away, that can help you take that energy that you're feeling, that level of stress and anxiety, to where you can just get back and reset and get grounded. And I think lastly, part of what I want to do is, there's a couple of things. One is what we call box breathing. And I want to try that with you. Want to kind of go through a box breathing exercise with you. So box breathing is imagine that you're building a box. So now I'll talk you through it first, and then we'll actually do the exercise. So on one side of the box, when we inhale, that line is going to go up, and then when we're going to hold it, and while we're holding, that line is going to go across. When we that exhale, that line is going to come down. And then when we pause, we're going to build another line. So we built a box by going through the process of inhaling, holding, exhale, and then pause again. So just humor me. Let's go ahead and do a box breathing. Let's go ahead and do it. All right, three, two, one. Inhale, hold it, exhale, and pause. Oh, you build a couple boxes. I said do the box routine about two or three times. It just takes the air out of the balloon, just takes the hard air, lets you just relax and get back down to normal. On the grounding exercise, there's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in grounding. So part of grounding is you look at 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So for grounding, you can do it either in your current office environment, uh, you could do it at home, And part of what you want to do is be in a relaxed area where you're either laying down or you're sitting up in a chair. And you can just go to the exercise of looking around and finding 5 things that you can see, identify with those 5 things, and then 4 things you can touch. Look at 4 things you can actually put your hands on, and then 3 things that you hear. Get your mind in a state of calmness to where you can hear everything around you. And then 2 things you can smell, like taking in the environment, and then 1 thing you can taste. So that's what we call a grounding exercise. Very powerful. Once again, free, but just knowing that it exists and participating in that process helps you get to a grounding spot. And then one thing I love, love, love about the holidays is being grateful. People do it differently. My grandmother, God bless her soul, she was a queen of cards. So we would always walk down to the Walgreens or the Woolworth back in the day, and we would get these cards, these greeting cards. And I would help her fill out cards, and she would mail them out to everybody, all family members and friends. And then she would collect cards. And now, when I think about cards, it's just a good way to express gratitude. Sometimes people think they need to put pictures in it. You don't necessarily have to have the holiday pic with you and the family. Just merely open up the card and say, wishing you a happy holiday, putting a note, hey, hope all is well with you and Joe and Bob, and seal it up, put a stamp on it, and put it in the mail. You'd be amazed. I think one, the effort, because not everyone does email. And then two, people love to get mail, believe it or not. They love to check the mailbox and, boy, I got a piece of mail. So show your gratitude. And you'll be amazed at how people feel and take that in consideration. How it makes you feel too when you give gratitude. We had a training on showing gratitude from a leadership perspective, and you never know how impactful it is when someone knows that you're thankful for what you do for them, and that you, when you express it, you just feel different. You just feel like a different person, especially if you're in a bad space. And I think that's about it for me. Short and sweet, about 40-minute presentation, but um, I think overall this is a holiday season of joy and giving. And so you don't want stress and anxiety to creep in and take that joy. Always equip yourself and know when you're getting into that zone so you can do something different.
This is great, Horatio. One thing I wanted to throw out that I know a client or two of ours have done in the past, obviously, with our platform, you can upload custom content and documents. And we've had trucking companies that around holiday time had collected uh, drawings, Christmas cards, if you will, from the children of the truck drivers. And they would share those with drivers, especially those that are, long haul, living in a sleeper. Sometimes if you have a way to communicate with the drivers, the best thing you might be able to do for that driver that day is put a smile on their face. It can be lonely out there. So I thought that was a great idea. And I'm sure some of our uh, other folks out there that are watching the webinar have done things like that. But I think it's important for the trucking company to reach out and say happy holidays, thank you for what you do. Goes a long way to make drivers feel a little bit better about the circumstance they're in and time of the year and all that. So,
And this is towards for tots. You have
yeah.
different, bike. We tried collecting bikes one year, drivers bringing in bikes, and of course, people had to fix a couple of them up. But it's the spirit of giving as well.
Mark, do you have any comments? And then I've got one last thing here before we adjourn. Any comments?
Yeah, just I think it's a fact that our roadways are more dangerous during the holidays,
Yeah.
and we can get content delivered that would at least let our commercial drivers have some awareness of those anxiety issues. As the general public, I always visualize a pickup pulling a travel trailer and they're throwing empty beer cans out the window and swerving all over the place. That's a reality of the things that happen over the holidays, compounded by the changing of weather,
Mm.
fog,
Mm.
family issues. It's just a dangerous place. So I would certainly encourage everyone to do everything you can to make your drivers aware of the additional dangers that they express. And I'm going to start practicing the box concept,
Yeah, I like
Horatio.
that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I kind of gave you an abbreviated version, but you can YouTube the box breathing. It's very impactful. I've done it a couple times because, of course, when you're engaging, it's so easy to get so amped up about what you're trying to deliver and what you're trying to give people that you may come into a zone that you need to pull back. So it helps you relax and get grounded so you can hit the reset button.
Very good. Lastly, I popped up a poll on the screen of folks. If you're a NATME member and you would like to get a certificate so you can get your recertification points from having attended the webinar, just say yes there on the poll. If you're a current customer, if you want to get access to Horatio's Driving Well driver course, which talks about anxiety and depression and stress management and personal development, just reach out to your customer service. If you're not one of our customers, reach out anyway, and we'll reach back to you and tell you how you can get access to that kind of information. And also, one of the things that creates a lot of anxiety, obviously, is the possibility of a driver being involved in an accident of some sort. And we have very recently introduced a whole series of premium video content about what to do at the scene of an accident. So I think there are 25 videos, half for drivers, half for company personnel. And if you'd like to learn more about that content, because that is a very serious anxiety producer, if you're even if it's a minor thing. So to make sure companies train their drivers and make sure they're comfortable and know what to do when that happens, I think that can reduce the anxiety associated with that. So having said that, I don't see any other questions coming in. Horatio, as always, thank you, sir. This is always good information. And just to remind everybody, if you're still with us here, we'll be sending out an email that'll have a link so you can see a replay of this webinar. That way you can share it with some folks there that haven't had a chance to join us today. So with that being said, Horatio, once again, thank you, sir.
Hey,
Mark,
thank
thank
you.
you. Happy holidays to everyone that joined us. Thanks for joining, and keep a lookout for an email for the next webinar from Infinity Workforce. So thank you all for coming, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Take care, guys.
Thank
Have a
you to
happy
everyone.
holiday.